10 years. That's how long it had been since she passed. Some days it felt like a dream, like I'd turn the corner and see her sipping tea on the porch. Other days, it felt like 1,000 years had gone by since her laugh echoed through our home. But today was different. I was in the attic, not to remember her, but to finally pack things away. The dust up there was thick. Old photo albums, forgotten Christmas ornaments, a rocking chair we never used. I wasn't looking for anything in particular. Maybe just closure. Maybe just silence. Then I saw the box. It was shoved behind an old trunk, covered in a brown towel. Not labeled. Taped carefully. It looked untouched. I pulled it out, sat down on a crate, and opened it. Inside were some of her journals, a few scarves, a birthday card I wrote her in 2004, and then the letter. It was in an ivory envelope. My name, James, written in her handwriting. I knew it immediately. My chest tightened. My hands trembled. I hadn't seen that handwriting in a decade. I didn't know what to do. I held it for a long time before opening it. Part of me feared what it would say. Another part clung to the moment, like I had her back, even if just for a second. Then I opened it, and everything changed. Before I tell you what the letter said, I need to tell you who she was. Her name was Claire, and she was light. That's the only word that fits. We met in the most unromantic place, a DMV line. She was behind me, humming some old jazz tune while I grumbled about the wait. She tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You know complaining doesn't make it go faster, right?" I turned around to respond and froze. She had the kind of smile that softened years of bitterness in a heartbeat. I forgot what I was upset about. We talked until our numbers were called, and when mine came up first, I pretended I didn't hear it, just to talk to her a little longer. A year later, we were married. Claire believed in ordinary miracles, like handwritten notes on napkins, warm cookies on rainy days, dancing barefoot in the kitchen. She never needed grand gestures. She needed presence, attention, heart. We never had children, not by choice, but by fate. We tried, we prayed, we cried, and then we made peace with it. Claire used to say, maybe the world just needed more aunties and uncles who really show up. Then, at 41, Claire was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. She didn't cry, not at first. She looked at the doctor and said, "All right then, we'll dance through this too." But chemo was cruel. Radiation was brutal. I watched her light flicker. Even then, she was the strong one. She worried more about how Anne was coping than about herself. I remember one night, during her final month, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "James, promise me you won't stop living when I do." I nodded, but I didn't mean it. Hospice came. The laughter faded. Her body thinned, but her spirit never broke. On her last morning, I sat by her bedside, my head down, just holding her hand. She opened her eyes, smiled faintly, and whispered, "Love is louder than death, James. Remember that." Then she was gone, and I forgot everything. The world became quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that hurts. I never knew she had written me a letter, never knew there was still something left to say. But now, 10 years later, I held her words in my hand, frozen in time. And as I began to read, I realized This letter wasn't written during the early days of her illness. It was written 2 days before she passed. She had hidden it for me to find exactly when I needed it. The letter was written in her handwriting, soft, looping, a bit shaky from the illness, but still unmistakably Claire. It began simply, "James, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've survived. That alone makes me smile. You always were stronger than you thought." I sat down on the floor of the attic, the letter trembling in my hands. Her voice filled the silence, not a ghost's whisper, but the warm, familiar tone that used to greet me every morning. "I didn't want to leave you. You need to know that. But I also knew I couldn't stay. God was calling me home, and I had to go, even if my heart broke for you in the process. You gave me the most beautiful life, James, and I know how stubborn you are, which is why I had to write this. Stop punishing yourself for not saving me. That was never your job." That line hit me like a wave. She knew. She knew I had been carrying guilt, regret, the belief that maybe if I'd noticed the symptoms sooner, gotten a second opinion, prayed harder. "You loved me with every ounce of your soul. You didn't fail me. You carried me. Now it's time to carry yourself." I had to pause reading. The tears came too fast, too hot. I whispered out loud, "Claire, why did you wait so long for me to find this?" As if the letter answered, "I know grief. I know you. You needed to hurt before you could heal. You needed silence before my voice could reach you again. So when you're ready to smile again, really smile, I want you to do something bold. I want you to dance." I laughed through the tears. Only Claire would ask me to dance. The last paragraph was a final gift. "There's one more thing. Go to the bookshelf in my sewing room. Behind the poetry collection. There's something waiting for you." Still holding the letter, I stood up and walked downstairs. That room had been closed for a decade. Dust covered the shelves. I pulled out the books one by one until I found a small, worn notebook. Inside it were dozens of pages, prayers, reflections, thoughts she had written during her final months. But the first page was a list. Things I hope James still does. Buys himself sunflowers once in a while, eats that ridiculous caramel pie he loves. Travels to Ireland only like we always planned. Laughs loudly at old sitcoms. Dances barefoot in the kitchen. She had given me a blueprint, a roadmap back to life. By the time I finished the letter and notebook, the sun was rising. I stood in the middle of the kitchen, letter in one hand, and whispered, "Okay, Claire, let's dance." I turned on the old stereo. Nat King Cole played. And for the first time in a decade, I moved, not away from grief, but with it. Because grief, I realized, isn't the absence of love. It's the proof of it. I've read Claire's letter more than 100 times now. Sometimes in the morning, with coffee in hand. Sometimes at night when the silence feels heaviest. And every time, it says something new. Not because the words change, but because I do. That's the thing about grief. It evolves. It doesn't vanish, and it doesn't ask for permission. It simply shifts, from sharp to dull, from waves to ripples, from pain to memory. But Claire's letter didn't just help me grieve. It helped me live. I started visiting her favorite park every Sunday. I brought a folding chair, sat near the big oak she loved, and just listened to the breeze, the birds, the quiet. And then, one day, a little girl came up to me with a yellow flower. "It's for your wife," she said, and ran off. I didn't cry. I smiled, because Claire would have loved that. I flew to Ireland 3 months ago, walked the cliffs of Moher, sat in a tiny chapel in Galway, took a photo in front of the Blarney Castle. She would have teased me for finally going and for waiting so long. But I carried her with me, in my pocket, in my heart, in every small kindness I offered a stranger along the way. I started writing again, letters to her, stories from our life, even reflections on what it means to lose and to heal. And then I realized, maybe someone else needs to hear this. So I'm sharing it with you. If you've lost someone, a spouse, a parent, a child, a friend, you know that no story ever ends. It just changes. And maybe that's the message Claire wanted me to carry. That love doesn't die. It echoes. In letters, in memories, in laughter, in the quiet moments when we expect nothing and feel everything. Her letter ended like this: "James, I'll see you again, but until then, live for us both, love for us both, and when you dance, know that I'm there, always." So now, when I hear our song, I don't turn it off. I turn it up, and I dance. To anyone out there who's grieving, don't rush it, don't fight it. But when the time comes, and it will come, open the attic, find the letter, let the light in. Because the people we've loved most, they're never truly gone. They're just waiting for us to remember how to smile again.